Dutton Ranch Season 1 Episode 4 Review. Why do Rip and Beth have to kill their cattle? Below are spoilers. In Texas, things aren't going well for Beth and Rip. Bless them, after everything they had gone through in Montana during Yellowstone, all they wanted was a new beginning. I can't say that I'm whining about the drama that followed, though. We all appear to be enjoying themselves while we watch. Dutton Ranch surpasses all of Taylor Sheridan's previous series to become the largest original series premiere in Paramount Plus history. The Dutton Ranch crew is watching a group of sick-looking cows in the opening scene of the 4th episode. Unfortunately, the remainder of the herd has been afflicted by the foot-and-mouth diseased bull that Beth and Rip purchased at the auction. How on earth are they going to handle this? Beth enters the house while Carter and Oreana are having some morning-after embraces. To my astonishment, Beth makes it apparent that Carter must be at school even though she doesn't force Oreana out of Carter's bed. When Oreana told Beth Dutton that Carter is old enough to choose his own schedule, I genuinely gasped. Oreana doesn't know who she is interacting with in this situation. However, Beth might be able to tolerate a backtalker. Oreana receives a warning from Beth as she is driven home to the 10-petal ranch, fuck with Carter, and you're fucking with Beth. After dropping Oreana off at home, Beth speaks briefly with Beulah, who extends an invitation for reconciliation drinks. I still believe Beulah, or at least someone in her family, may be responsible for the foot-and-mouth crisis, so it's probably best that Beth declines. It appears like their rivalry won't be ending anytime soon. After arriving home, Oreana finds it difficult to roll a joint. Beulah, of course, assists her with ease, and she receives a severe reprimand for wandering around town and spending the night at the homes of boys. As a consequence, Oreana will have a 10-petal bodyguard following her around from now on, essentially stripping her of privacy and what little freedom she had left. Instead of attending school, Carter visits a tool store in search of employment. He is hired by a rancher named Dwight, Ray McKinnon, to perform some manual labor on his farm, but he is only able to provide grub in exchange. Carter ends up getting rather inebriated with Dwight as night falls since he would much prefer work by hand than read Animal Farm. After carrying suitcases all day, he gets to meet Dwight's beloved pet, Xena the African leopard. I like the name Xena, but she doesn't belong in Texas. Carter ultimately receives payment in cash for his day's labor after all of that. As it happens, the pregnant mare was merely a ploy to lure Everett in for a whiskey and possibly a booty call. When Beulah informs Everett that Rob has returned to treatment, perhaps the third time is the charm, Everett becomes oddly worried that Chet won't be able to manage being the ranch's foreman. Everett and Beulah may have had a more serious relationship in the past based on his attention and worry, but once Everett lost his son Levi, things appear to have collapsed. He tells a heartwarming tale of how he is unable to remove the tire swing from his yard since it serves as a visual reminder of Levi, who used to play on it. As their relationship begins to heat up, he tells Beulah, "We got too many demons to be good for each other." Beulah starts crying as Everett leaves the property before things become too hot. I'm rooting for Harris and Benning to get back together, perhaps it's just their incredible on-screen chemistry. Later that evening, Beulah spends some time with Joaquin while intoxicated. She says, "I'm so fucking tired," obviously feeling overburdened by the responsibility of running the ranch by herself. Although Joaquin offers to take over the ranch on her behalf, she finds it difficult to relinquish control. For unknown reasons, she also appears to be more interested in leaving the property to Oreana. I would definitely skip this following section if you are sensitive to animal violence on television. It's time to fire down the infected herd, so Rip, Zachariah, and Azul get their weapons at the Dutton Ranch while Beth serves them drinks. There is no treatment for foot and mouth, which is a terrible aspect of life on a ranch. Culling is the only choice. The shooting starts, and even though the camera stays focused on Rip's face as he targets and shoots each cow, the violence is nevertheless unsettling. By the end of the massacre, Rip, Beth, and the other members of the squad appear completely defeated. What's next? Perhaps some payback? Beth had previously discovered how she and Rip had allowed Patient Zero to join the herd. The Duttons should meet the broker who defrauded them because it turns out that the diseased bull's medical records were falsified. As Beth watches outside and takes a cigarette, Rip ends up throwing this man around his trailer. As he lights his trailer on fire, Rip tells him not to return to town. As the pair leaves, the trailer explodes. This town has to realize that interfering with this pair will have repercussions. However, is the broker truly the end of the matter? As previously said, I believe there may be a more complex plot at work. By the end of the episode, Carter understands that Beth wanted to take him out on a date so he wouldn't have to witness them exterminating the herd. She saw it as a maternal impulse to shield him from that trauma, but he perceives it as infantilization, manipulation, and exclusion. Despite her good intentions, Beth seems to realize that lying to him was wrong. We must keep in mind that she lost her father and that her mother passed away when she was a small child. Consequently, she is making every effort to raise and care for Carter. As the show comes to a close, Beth pours herself, yet another, drink and Rip calls Everett to check that they have eliminated the herd. From here, where do we go? It seems like the ranch will require a true Hail Mary to survive whatever comes next, because the herd was their primary source of revenue. Dutton Ranch isn't that kind of show, and almost every series that Taylor Sheridan creates or produces is a hit because he defies TV conventions. It's not as though a regular TV drama doesn't contain romance, bloodshed, or any of the other classic components. The best Sheridan-verse shows tackle stories that no other show can. For example, in Dutton Ranch Episode 4, Start with a Bullet, Rip, Cole Hauser, and Beth, Kelly Riley, are faced with a ranch full of sick cattle. For the first time in a long time, I truly thought, wait, when I saw this issue on TV. If something occurs, how would you respond? Murder. Apprehend the murderer. Are you hurt? Bring them over to the pit. A town haunted? Remove the curse. However, what happens to a rancher who must eradicate all of their livestock in order to prevent the spread of a disease? Is this covered by insurance? Is Dutton Ranch destined to fail? Is it possible for ranchers outside of Rip to get revenge by setting the man's trailer on fire? I have a ton of inquiries. We won't know what happens next until Episode 5. The majority of Episode 4 focuses on Rip's devastating loss of having to murder all of his cattle, including the calf he saved from the blaze in the premiere, and then bury them in a large ditch. Although you might assume it wouldn't have the same impact as a significant character death on a high-profile HBO program, it does. The catastrophe is handled by Dutton Ranch as if it were the biggest sin in the planet. Before the massacre starts, Rip alerts his cowboys, this will be one of those days that you carry with you until the end of your life. In another scene from Episode 4, guest star Raymond McKinnon teaches Carter, Finn Little, cowboying while he continues to skip school. The Carter plots on Dutton Ranch are something I could live without. The 0-100 romance between Carter and Oreana, Natalie Allen Lind, last week was not nearly as entertaining as this week's scene in which Lady Montague drives Juliet back to Lady Capulet's castle in her Ram 3500. This is primarily because Beth threatened to ruin Juliet's life if she didn't play her cards correctly. However, McKinnon's appearance as this week's guest star would thrill any Deadwood fan. The actor, who portrayed Revere Ned H.W. in the Western drama. In one of the greatest TV shows I've ever seen, Smith simply hangs around with Carter and drinks a lot of beer. He occasionally imparts life lessons to the young Dutton rancher, such as, Rule 1, 2, and 3 is, never turn down free food. Additionally, there is a little sequence in Episode 4 between Beulah, Annette Bening, and Everett, Ed Harris, that I wish had more time to develop. In a monologue about their shared history, Ed Harris's character mentions a tire swing hanging from an oak tree in his backyard that he finds difficult to chop down. Above all, he says, I just want the ropes to rot so I don't have to hear it creak every time the breeze blows by. I mean, a part of me still believes that Levi is out there. Then reality sets in. The wound bursts open once more. But the shame of taking it down. Beulah, shit. We have too many demons to ever be nice for one another, even if we could go back. There is a lot to deduce from this. This is the first time Levi is mentioned, and it's easy to deduce that the couple may have become estranged after experiencing the loss of a shared kid. This encounter between Everett and Beulah is definitely not the last one we'll witness. Nevertheless, for a situation between them that may be as painful as losing a kid. I mean, a part of me still believes that Levi is out there. Then reality sets in. The wound bursts open once more. But the shame of taking it down. Beulah, shit. We have too many demons to ever be nice for one another, even if we could go back. There is a lot to deduce from this. This is the first time Levi is mentioned, and it's easy to deduce that the couple may have become estranged after experiencing the loss of a shared kid. This encounter between Everett and Beulah is definitely not the last one we'll witness. Nevertheless, for a situation between them that may be as painful as losing a kid, it's unfortunate that we only give Everett's story 2 or 3 minutes before returning to Carter's lasso training. I think this moment is just as worthy as the monologues by Sam Elliott and Billy Bob Thornton during the post-funeral scene in Landman Season 2. Hopefully, the next time Everett and Beulah share the screen, we'll give it a little more thought. Until then, you can find me trying to learn about ranching disasters and being trapped in a Google rabbit hole. Because Dutton Ranch did a very excellent job of making this cattle massacre appear to be the worst thing that has ever happened to this family, unless Rip and Beth find a solution next week. Oreana is dropped off home by Beth. I honestly didn't think Beth would learn that her adopted son, Carter, is seeing a Jackson, a lady who is probably older than him, anytime soon, but here we are. In the midst of everything going on the family ranch, Beth went into Carter's room without knocking, thinking the 19-year-old was still asleep, only to discover that he was sleeping with a girl. The three of them are in a somewhat embarrassing scenario. Beth offered to drop Oreana off instead of Carter, who intended to drop her off on his way to school. She wanted to know if Oreana would be a good fit for her child. In the short conversation, although Beth still doesn't fully trust Oreana, she realized that she wasn't at all like her grandmother, Beulah Jackson. Beth will take her sweet time to fully accept Oreana since, as you are all aware, it is difficult to win her favor. Beulah was in a difficult situation as a result of Oreana's conduct, which made Sheriff Wade and others doubt the Jacksons' reliability. Until Oreana stopped acting like a child, Beulah grounded her and revoked her credit cards. McKinney's kid was lost. Beulah's prior contact with McKinney at Ellis Logan's burial seems to have rekindled old affections, as evidenced by the town's veterinarian visiting her villa for a drink. Nevertheless, Beulah called McKinney's clinic and informed the attendant that a pregnant horse was about to foal and required immediate medical attention because she knew he would never have been to see her if she had just requested him to stop by. The problem is that our old veterinarian was more concerned with the foal than his former lover, so when he learned that no one was in town to look to the poor animal, McKinney hurried to 10 Petal, only to discover that Beulah was the mare he had to put up with. Here, the situation made clear that McKinney and Robwell used to be close. He was aware that he was a good young man, a better foreman than Chet, and capable of doing some good in life, if only he could get over his addiction and demons. It's possible that Beulah and McKinney were married and had 2 children, including Robwell, rather than merely being former lovers. McKinney mentioned the second child, who was most likely called Levi, as he reflected on the past. When Levi left, McKinney was unable to cut down the rope that had been tied up to the old tire swing in his garden, indicating that he still had memories of the tragedy. When Rip called McKinney at the end of the episode, he was sitting on the porch, drinking, and gazing at the same old tire swing, most likely thinking about the child he had lost. Before leaving Beulah's villa, McKinney informed her that they would never be compatible because they had too many issues to overcome. I assume he was referring to their mutual sorrow, most likely Levi's passing, which may have caused the 2 lovers to part ways. Another option is that Beulah and McKinney never had any children other than Levi. After McKinney entered Beulah's life, he took care of Robwell as his son. Robwell may be Beulah's son from her prior, and only legal, marriage. But his relationship with Beulah suffered after Levi passed away. They broke things off and parted ways shortly after. Carter makes another old friend. As you are all aware, Beth and Rip want to give Carter the life he deserves and are making an effort to be excellent parents. However, after living on the ranch for a significant portion of his childhood, Carter is no longer able to relate to typical children. Beth wants him to attend to school, learn algebra, and make friends, but all those high school kids see in him is a simpleton who can be used to give them cool drinks. Carter clearly struggles to fit in, which explains why he connects with Oreana and enjoys spending time with her. Because, in contrast to his mother, who continues to treat him like a 15-year-old even though he isn't, she understands him. They won't let Carter near the field because they believe he's too young to handle it, even though he wants to be on the ranch and help Rip establish his legacy. Angry with his mother, Carter skipped school and went hunting for a day job at a nearby store. Eventually, he met old Dwight, who requested Carter to assist him out for the day. I couldn't see any horses or cattle on Dwight's ranch, which makes me wonder if he deals in steers at all. However, the chat between the two showed that Dwight was an alpine rancher who had moved to Rio Paloma. Ultimately, Dwight led Carter farther into his ranch and showed him Xena, a full-blooded African leopard, confined in a cage. Dwight explained to Carter that he purchased this animal from an elderly Arkansas boy online. That is untrue, in my opinion, and Dwight is probably a poacher who smuggles protected animals across international boundaries. Carter might get into serious difficulty if he doesn't exercise caution. That I don't have any ill will toward old Dwight, but following the bull incident, I believe the Duttons should exercise caution since you never know what someone is concealing behind a mask. Unfortunately, as of right now, Carter has come to like Dwight since, like him, Dwight believes that school is a waste of time. And a true rancher picks up knowledge on the field. This implies that Dwight and Carter will continue to contact, and the young man will continue to skip school in order to work for Dwight. Eventually, he will find himself in a dangerous situation from which only Beth and Rip can save him. Yes, this was the most terrifying scene in the whole episode. Rip shoots the cattle. Despite Rip and Beth's best efforts to save the herd, the FMD virus had destroyed all of their animals, leaving them with no choice but to shoot them down and bury them 6 feet deep. In order to prepare the graves for their premium Black Angus herd, Rip dispatched Zach and Azul to a neighboring store to bring bullets and other equipment. Since red is connected to hell, Zach purchased a red spray from the department shop to mark the ground in order to dig a pit. This suggests that Rip and Beth were, in a sense, condemning their herd to hell since they were unable to save them. Rip fired shots at the herd as they moved the animals to the pit and barricaded the entrance after excavating. The sad thing about this situation is that, although he knew these animals deserved better and didn't want to do it, he had no other option. Sadly, the calf that Beth had come to love was also infected, despite her hopes that they could retain it. Rip had risked his life to save the calf from the Dillon fire, and now he had to shoot it to save it from dying a torturous death. He knew it would be difficult for him to kill that helpless creature, so he saved the calf for last. When everything was finished, Rip, Zach, and Azul covered the grave after applying hydrated lime to the bodies to eradicate the illness. The virus came from the new bull. The new bull was the one that introduced the virus to the ranch and infected Rip and Beth's herd, as the 4th episode of Dutton Ranch made evident. In episode 2, J.R. Simon, a cattle dealer, provided Rip a copy of the bull's pre-sale examination and blood test report, both of which were signed by Dr. Poole, after Rip purchased the bull at auction. But when Beth called Dr. Poole at the veterinarian's office to confirm the information, he informed her that he had never heard of J.R. Simon. This led Beth to believe that Simon falsified the documents because he was aware of the bull's illness. But Simon assured Rip, "People come to me," when Rip and Beth arrived at his trailer. "Their business ain't mine," implying that Simon may only be acting as a go-between, a salesperson who brought the bull to the auction, and that someone else may be in the background. According to my view, Joaquin Reyes was the one who planned the entire operation by himself. He probably recruited Simon to sell the sick bull to the Duttons so they would lose their premium herd and used his connections to set up fictitious blood test results. Alternatively, Beulah urged Joaquin to show Duttons where they belong because Beth appeared to be very proud of her Black Angus and there was no better way to exact revenge than to cause her to lose all of them. Recall that Beulah abruptly ceased bidding on the same bull from Reveille Farm in episode 2, allowing Rip and Beth to take it home. Perhaps she knew all along that the bull was diseased, or perhaps she discovered out after the sale and allowed Beth to take the bull home because she intended it to wipe off Dutton's herd. This is why I don't believe Simon was the primary offender in this case, but for some reason, Rip didn't question him well enough and allowed him to go before he set his trailer on fire. Since he is unlikely to return to Texas, we will never be able to identify the true monster responsible for this tragedy. Beulah is opposed to Joaquin assuming control of her empire. Joaquin's full name is Joaquin Reyes, and according to the IMDb credits, he shares his surname with Mariano Reyes, the man who called Beulah in the previous episode and mentioned that he would be moving this month, probably across the border. This is another intriguing detail that I can't stop thinking about. Now, in episode 4, after McKinney left the house, Beulah got another call, I believe it was from Mariano, because she hadn't been able to go asleep since. Perhaps it came from the Sedona rehab, telling Beulah that her son had escaped for the third time. Whatever it was, Beulah became quite tense following this call and was unable to fall asleep. When she told Joaquin at night, "Estoy harta," which means, "I'm fed up," he responded, "Yo S1XE4, which means, "I know, boss," and told her to let him take over the company. As you can see, he referred to her as boss rather than mum or mother, which leads me to assume that Mariano gave Joaquin his last name rather than the Jacksons, as he claimed to Beth. Additionally, it's possible that Mariano is Beulah's present spouse, but I could be mistaken. I believe we should wait a few more episodes to find out Beulah's precise relationship with Joaquin and Mariano. The second significant aspect that has been revealed thus far is that Beulah still hasn't found a suitable heir to manage her empire, despite her desire to retire and take one last ride with McKinney. She might have had great expectations for her sole biological son, Rob Will Jackson, but sadly, he was unable to control his problems. For this reason, Beulah desired for Rob Will's biological daughter, Oreana Jackson, to inherit her fortune. You can see why Beulah does not want Joaquin to succeed her. Beulah never thought of him as her own because he is not related to her by blood, not because he is incapable of doing so.